Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of No Limits. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, and this is a special opportunity to bring back a couple of guys that I work with. They are colleagues over at the Coral Springs Coconut Creek Regional Chamber of Commerce, Ron Renzy and Joe Littman. And I had the good fortune of working with these fellas when I was a member of the chamber. And every now and then I do tend to make a appearance as a guest. And just before I introduce these guys along, they're people that I really value an awful lot. And tonight's broadcast will be talking about property damage and insurance claims. So for a lot of you folks out there, we're here to make sure that you get educated to the max. And Joe Littman and Ron Renzy will bring a lot of interesting information. So I would encourage you folks to buckle down, get a notepad and paper, and go out there and take some notes. Before I turn it over to Joe, I want to let everybody know that No Limits can be found on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do so. And then you can see the visual portion of the broadcast. This broadcast can also be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Spreaker, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, go to www.southfloridatribune.com as well. And I can be located at Tribune South. So lots of different ways to view and listen to the broadcast. I always view these broadcasts as simulcast. Not only you get to see us, you get to hear us. So whether you're taking a bus, whether you're in your automobile, or wherever the case is, you'll be able to find out, learn one way or the other. So with that said, let me introduce Ron Renzy. First of all, Sunshine Appeals. Ron, welcome to No Limits.
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to what Joe has to tell us.
Glad to have you back, Ron. And of course, Joe Littman of Nor Law Group. I see your phone number out there is 954-749-3151 if my eyes are not failing me. Joe, why don't you get everybody go out there and give a little intro about yourself.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me on your program. I'm Joe Littman of the Nor Law Group. We are a property damage insurance law firm in Coral Springs, Florida. And what that means is we specialize in property damage insurance claims litigation. So when a homeowner's insurance company denies or underpays or delays your insurance claim after you have a casualty loss, such as a hurricane, fire, tornado, pretty much anything that could damage your home. And if your insurance company doesn't do right by you, it, like I said, underpays or denies or just delays a decision on your claim, that's where we step in and try to recover the amount of money that your insurance company should have paid to put your property back to its pre-loss condition, because that's what they're supposed to do. You spend a lot of money. We all spend a lot of money as homeowners on property insurance. And hey, when we have a claim, they should be there to protect us, when the unfortunate event happens that we have to put through a claim. And that is what I'm here to talk to you about, is being prepared for that unfortunate event.
And Ron, I want to, before Joe goes into any more detail, why don't you give the audience a little bit more of a detailed explanation about what you do with the Sunshine Appeals firm as well. I think what you do definitely brings a very good dimension to what the audience might be. I know you're both are different attorneys, but you represent different things.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. As you said, I'm also an attorney. My law firm is Sunshine Appeals, located in Coral Springs, Florida. We're a Florida appellate law firm handling various kind of appeals, whether it's commercial litigation, family law, personal injury, first-party insurance claims, or constitutional law. We handle appeals throughout the state of Florida. Basically, if things don't work out well at trial, give us a call, and that's what we're here for. But thank you, Scott, and I'm really happy to be here.
All right. Well, Joe, with that said, I know you have a lot of good information. I know that you had an opportunity to present the information to the Coral Springs Wednesday group, as I understand it. So what I'm going to do, Joe, is I'm going to let you pretty much go along with what you presented to them, but I want you to do it, obviously, to our audience as well. As I read through the material, I thought a lot of it was very useful, and I know that our audience will be very thankful that they'll be able to generate a lot of interest. And I know that there might be some of these things that can be universal, around the country as well, because it applies to different things. A lot of the things that I know, especially that you do, even though they might be area specific a little bit, there are some things that can actually cross over from a general standpoint where everybody can benefit. So with that said, Joe, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. And yeah, the program I did for the Coral Springs Chamber of Commerce Wednesday group was geared, well, it was premised upon storm season is here, hurricane season's here in South Florida, be prepared. But like you said, Scott, a lot, actually, most of the pointers that I have really pertain to any particular insurance situation. So without any further ado, your property, whether residential or commercial, is one of the largest investments you're ever going to make. And if you have the unfortunate event of a casualty loss, fortunately, most damages can be repaired. Even a total loss as a fire, it could be rebuilt. But your insurance policy has to provide the means for you to restore your property back to its pre-loss condition. And obviously, your insurance company has to do right by you. And if you have a valid claim, they need to pay it. And that's where property damage law firms such as Nord Law Group comes in. So what I'm really here to talk about is everybody knows what to do, well, at least in South Florida, for hurricane preparedness. Buying non-perishable foods, bottled water, flashlight, batteries. I'm not here to talk about those things because everybody knows about those things. And if you're in different areas in the country where, like, you have tornadoes or wildfires, I'm sure you know how to prepare for those things. What I'm here to talk to you about is being prepared from an insurance standpoint. Because a lot of times, most people really don't give too much thought about their insurance policy until it's too late, until after you have to already use it. So the very first thing you can do to be prepared, even before the unfortunate event of having a loss, is to review your policy and make sure that you have the proper coverage and adequate coverage. A lot of people get a policy because their mortgage requires it. And unfortunately, a lot of people get the cheapest policy that their insurance agent can find for them. And I mean, how many of us get that policy and never open up the binder to see what the terms actually say? Before I was a property damage attorney, I did that when I was a young first-time homeowner. Never again, because I've seen too many horror stories where people found out, after they had a need for the coverage, that they did not have the proper coverage. So one, very important, review your policy with your agent if necessary, and make sure that you have proper coverage. And be aware of certain things. There are things such called ordinance and law. Most people would have no idea what that means. What it means is, if you're rebuilding a property and the code requires you to bring it, the applicable building code requires you to bring it up to code, and you don't have that ordinance and law coverage, you're going to pay that all on your own. So make sure that, and the policies can say, you could opt out of it. So make sure that before you opt out any coverage and you get a credit for like $100 or whatever, make sure you understand what it is that the rights you're giving up. Some other examples, a lot of insurance companies are putting limits on payouts for things like water damage for $10,000. That's something you should be aware of, and you might be able to increase the coverage by paying an additional premium. I could tell you that $10,000, you could pay out that amount for a water damage claim very easily. And if you're stuck with that type of limit, you might want to up your coverage or see if you could even do it. Some insurance companies will cap the coverage at $10,000. You might have to shop around for another company that won't cap it. Another thing to be on the lookout for is a lot of insurance companies require participation in what's called a managed repair program. And you might get a credit for this, and you might think, oh, yeah, that's great. Problem with managed repair could be fine if that's your cup of tea, but what you have to keep in mind is if a policy gives your insurance company the right to repair, option to repair, that means it takes the choice out of your hands. You can't then choose your own contractor to do the work for you. And, some people don't like that. Some people want to choose their own contractors. So that, that's something to keep a lookout in a policy. And then there's other companies. If you live in Florida, you're familiar with Citizens Property Insurance. They have a managed repair program as well. But the key to that one is that if you have a claim, I talked about $10,000 water cap on some policies. Citizens does the same thing, but in a lot of their policies, they'll let you go over and above that cap if you use companies that they choose. So you're free to choose your own company, but then you're capped at $10,000. But if you use their managed repair, you can go over it. But that's something you should know from the beginning, because what I see happen a lot of times is people have a claim, or they have damage to their property. They'll get on the phone. They'll start calling repair companies, water mitigation companies, dry out companies, and they'll have those people come there, and they'll get large bills, and they don't realize, because they haven't read their policies, that the policy puts limits on those payments. $3,000 to a water mitigation company, for example, if you use your own, but no limit if you use the insurance company's preferred provider. So all of this falls into the category of know what your policy says, and because if you don't know and you put in a claim, and you could really hurt yourself. So those are things that's some of the things you could do before. Another thing you could do before. Go ahead,
Joe.
Ron.
I just wanted, if hopefully I'm gonna pop in, just ask you a question, because it's a great point that you're making. In your experience, should the proposed policyholder talk to their agent? Will their agent be versed in some of the things that you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Or should they get a copy of the policy themselves? Or
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, like I said, so many of us are concerned most with the bottom line, what the policy is going to cost. And a lot of times, agents will be happy to talk to you about it, but they just don't get the questions, and they'll just issue, whatever you ask them for. If you ask for the cheapest, then that's what you get. But yes, like for instance, a lot of people have particular needs that if they don't bring it to the attention of their agent, that those needs aren't going to be satisfied. Like for instance, at my home, we have a very expensive grand piano. And, insurance policies are not one size fits all. I mean, they can be, but like they'll have limits on personal property. If you have a special situation where you need more personal property coverage, you could buy that. You could, you could add more to your policy, but your agent needs to know these things so that you get the proper coverage. That's goes along with what I was saying. Review your policy with your agent to make sure that you have those coverages. And if you don't understand what coverages are in your policy, like for instance, the ordinance and law, before you just say, yeah, I don't need that, I'm going to, what's that? I'm just going to get rid of it and take the $150 credit you might get. You might want to find out what that is, because it could hurt if you don't have it and you need it.
So you're saying it's on the burden of the property owner. They really should ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've probably seen this before, being a appellate attorney, a contracts attorney, but how many times do you have a client that says, hey, I signed this contract, can you take a look at it? Well, gee whiz, you've already signed it. If you were concerned about it, the time to have been it brought to my attention is before you sign it. So you can say, hey, Ron, I'm going to sign this contract. What do you think about this? And then you could give your advice. Same situation. If you wait until after you have a loss and you don't have the coverage, it's too late. So
really, insurance policy is contract.
Exactly. Because
people don't think of it that way.
It absolutely is, and that's actually going to be the subject of the next category of things I talk about. But before I get to that, the next thing before you would have a need to file a claim that you should do is take photos of your home, both inside and out, and your contents. Now, for a hurricane claim, this is like it's important, but I'll tell you where this is really important is for if you have a fire. And one of our clients actually had this problem, had a complete and total fire loss. And I could tell you it was a nightmare for him to fill out his personal property claim forms. And because what your insurance company is going to do, if you have any sort of property loss, whether it's a fire or whatever, is they're going to give you an inventory form, looks like a spreadsheet, columns and rows, and you have to list every single item of damaged contents, the value, what you're claiming, the description. It's a lot of work. Now, if you have a hurricane claim and you can walk around your house and see, a water-soaked TV or, with a smashed screen, at least you can see it. You can read the serial number off the back. If you have a fire, yeah, that's not going to happen because you're going to have nothing left. And if you had records sitting around your house and those burned too, you're not going to have that either. So what you really should do is take photos. If you're good at record keeping, keep your receipts, keep your invoices for things that you purchase. Obviously not for everything, but if you have large purchases, you buy a 85-inch flat screen TV for $5,000. You might want to keep the receipts for things like that. But take pictures. So easy to take pictures of things. Just go around your house. It might take you 20 minutes just to go all around your house and document all these things, and then email them to yourself. That way, God forbid, you have a fire. It's in the cloud somewhere. You have access to it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you want to have an electronic trail is what you're trying to do to make sure that in the event of a fire. And folks, I should point this out that I know that of all the things you have out there, fire is probably the most underrated thing that there is out there compared to the other ones. Water and the other ones, I get, but fire is fire. That's all there is to it.
Most of us don't have the luxury of having this option, because we have mortgages. I have friends that have paid off their mortgages and have opted to self-insure because insurance rates are just astronomical, but they do carry fire insurance because you get hit with a fire and that's a big hit. So
can you imagine what fire insurance would run out in California or anywhere we have wildfires? Oh my goodness.
Probably what hurricane insurance is in South Florida.
Yeah, no, but when you talk about fire, to me, it's a natural when you talk about different things around the country, whether it's fire, whether it's hurricanes, tornadoes, or whatnot. I'm not trying to get off topic, but what I'm trying to really say is don't underestimate the significance of a fire and have that electronic trail that you're talking about. That's all.
Yeah.
Great.
And, dovetailing in with the keeping things in the cloud and so that you have it handy. It's a good idea to have, if you have a paper copy of your policy, probably a good idea. Most of us probably have a digital version of it anyway online, just because, most insurance companies have all these records available for you to log in and see. But, you should, especially if like a storm is in the box, if you're in South Florida, you know what that means. You should keep these things handy because obviously if we do have a major storm, or if you're in a different place and you have a tornado or fire and you have a power outage, you're not going to be able to look these things up. So, keep the information handy if you do have to make a claim. Now, after a claim, if you are unfortunate enough to have a claim because your property's been damaged, one of the most important pieces of advice I could give you is report your claim promptly. What we were talking about before, your insurance policy is a contract, and one of the contractual terms of every policy that I've ever seen is a duty to report your claim promptly. Now, most policies, I've never seen any policy that actually defines what prompt is, but it's usually within a reasonable time after the loss. Now, sometimes you don't know that you have damage. Like we have clients that had damage from Hurricane Irma, but they didn't know it right away. Most people don't go on their roofs and see, the condition of their roofs. But at some point after the storm, they got leaks when it started, raining in rainy season, and they reported claims. Those claims were uphill battles because they were not reported promptly. So but if you the key is report it as promptly as you possibly can, and avoid any defense by your insurance company that you did not comply with the terms of your policy. And believe me, there's other terms in your policy that require you to that you are required to fulfill in order to not be in violation of your policy. For instance, retaining damaged property until the insurance company comes in to inspect it. So, for instance, let's say you have water damage, and you hire a water damage mitigation company to come and do a dry out. And usually what that means is they bring fans and filters and they dry things out. They might pull up your carpet. They might take off baseboards and things like that. Now, if the insurance company sends their own people, that's one thing. But if you do it, you have your own company that you hire do it, make sure, one, that they don't throw things away until the insurance company can see it, and then take pictures, document everything. Because sometimes, the water mitigation happens before an inspector can come from the insurance company to take a look at things, because, that's kind of an emergency. You want to get that stuff cleaned up right away. But, in my experience, if in situations where this happens, if you don't, preserve the evidence, the insurance company might come in and say, well, we weren't able to investigate because you did things before we got there, and that's another fight. So to the extent possible, retain the damaged property until it's inspected by the insurance company's adjuster, and take photos of the damage. And that's another thing. I mean, just generally speaking, take photos of the damage as quickly as you can. You know what they say is a picture's worth 1,000 words. I've been at depositions in some of our insurance cases, and get a sense that the insurance company's attorney doesn't really always believe the story that's coming from the insured. But pictures don't lie. You have a picture or video of water pouring in your ceiling from a roof opening. That speaks for itself. So definitely take photos of damage if you can, when it's safe. I mean, obviously, if there's a hurricane going on or there's a fire, don't rush into your house or if fire, don't rush into your house. If there's a hurricane, don't rush outside of your house to do it, if it's not safe. But when it's safe, take pictures. Another duty that you absolutely need to do, and this kind of weaves in with the whole saving the damaged property, is you have to mitigate your damages to prevent further loss. And what that means is, let's say you have a roof leak from wind damage from a hurricane or a storm or tornado or what have you, and water's coming in through that opening in your roof. You need to put a tarp up or make some sort of temporary repair in the meantime, so that water doesn't continue to come into your house over a period of time. Because if that does happen, your insurance company is most likely going to defend against your claim and say you failed to mitigate your damages, you failed to prevent further loss. There are steps that you need to take, reasonable emergency measures to prevent that loss, and that would include such things as putting a tarp up, or in the case of water damage, like if you had a burst water pipe, it would be hiring a water mitigation company to come out and do a dry out. Stopping. Obviously, the first thing to do after you have a water pipe leak is shut off the water and get a plumber to fix whatever that situation is. But then dry it up and make sure there's no mold growing. And that is another thing that I want to talk about, because this kind of circles around back to being aware what your insurance policy says. You need to be careful if you do engage the services of a mitigation company. You want to know what your policy says, because I actually had this situation come up personally a few months ago. I had a water damage claim, unfortunately, and I looked at, first thing I did, looked at my policy. And after doing so and talking to the insurance company, I found out my insurance policy provides that there's no limit on my mitigation cost if I let the insurance company choose the contractor who's going to do the mitigation. Now, I was perfectly free to use whatever contractor I wanted, but if I did that, I was then capped at $3,000. If my contractor then charged anything over that, it was going to be my responsibility to pay it. But because I allowed the company sent by the insurance company to do it, they paid for the entire thing. That's important to know because you don't want to be stuck paying it out of your pocket because you don't know what your policy says. So be careful about that. And be careful about what your policy limits are on those mitigation expenses, so that sometimes what happens is the insurance policy requires you to get permission from the insurance company to go over a certain amount, like $3,000, and you can get approval to do that. But if you just go ahead and do it before you get approval, then you're on your own, or you have a fight with the insurance company. Another thing, I don't know if most people realize this, but their insurance company covers for any sort of living expenses, such as hotel stays and restaurant meals, if you're forced to live outside your home due to loss. And this is not just because, hurricane ravages your houses and makes it unlivable, but if during the repairs your house is unlivable because of the repairs that are being done, that could also apply as well. So, and usually the alternative living expenses, or what we call ALE, is a percentage of your insurance policy, coverage A, dwelling coverage. So if you do have to do that, make sure that you keep your receipts for hotels or Airbnb or wherever you're staying, and for your restaurant meals, and then you can turn that into your insurance company for payment. So those are basically the things that you really need to do before and after. Now, once you've done all these things that your policy requires you to do, you put your claim in. Your insurance company, there's 3 different things that could happen. One, they make a payment, but that payment's not quite enough to cover everything. They might, like, for instance, if you have a roof leak, they might say, okay, we're going to cover the inside damages, but we don't think you need a new roof. We think you just need a repair on your roof, and that's sufficient. And you disagree with them. You think, no, this caused serious damage to my roof, and the whole thing needs to be replaced. That's one instance where you might need to hire an attorney to help you pursue the amount you really need to put your house back to the way it should be before it was damaged. Another thing that could happen is the insurance company just outright denies your claim. Says, sorry, this isn't covered, or you did something to make to render no coverage for this claim. Obviously, that's more cut and dried. And then the third thing is, if you report your loss and time goes by and you just don't hear back from your insurance company. Now, I'm in Florida, but I'm sure the laws from other states also provide the insurance company has a certain amount of time to acknowledge your claim and either make a payment or deny it, give you some sort of feedback on how they're going to handle your claim. In Florida, that amount of time is 90 days from the day that you file the claim. Now, they have to acknowledge within 2 weeks that you did a claim, but the insurance company has a certain amount of time to investigate it, but then they have that deadline to make some sort of decision to pay or deny. And if that time is gone and they haven't gone back to you, and this is a rare event, this doesn't happen too often, but if that does happen, that's another reason why that you might want to contact an attorney to help you.
Joe, can I just want to ask you, in your experience of those, what's the most common of those 3 possibilities? What do you see the most, just in your experience?
Well, it could be a combination, really. Denials and underpayments are obviously they're neck and neck, most common, but sometimes it's a combination of things. Sometimes the insurance company will deny a portion of the claim, not a full denial, but a portion of the claim, and then underpay another portion of the claim. Like the example I gave a few moments ago. Let's say you have the unfortunate event of having a hurricane come through and do damage to your house, including your roof, and you have a roof leak. Your insurance company might say, sorry, this is a classic example. The damage to your roof wasn't from the storm; it was from wear and tear, improper maintenance, deterioration, anything but the storm. It wasn't that. And for there to be coverage, there has to be a peril created opening where, which is never defined in the policy, but there has to be some sort of opening in your roof or walls that the water came in to do damage on the inside. So many times they'll just deny everything. Sometimes they'll cover what's called the ensuing loss for the interior part of the property, the water damage, but might deny the roof portion of the claim. Or they might give you a little bit of both. They might underpay the inside. They might give you a roof repair, but not the whole roof replacement. So it really runs the gamut. You can see any of those things. And to a lesser extent, the delays, but that does happen.
Yeah, well, that leads me to my point. Okay, you talk about delays improving a response to your claim. How often would you say, Joe, does that happen? Sometimes insurance companies or whatever will do what they can to delay anything. All of a sudden, the clients out there hung out to dry, so to speak, and they don't know what to do because they're still in limbo. I mean, I think that's the one thing that should never get overlooked in this whole thing. I understand denying your claim is one thing, underpaying it, but delays to me are every bit as, if not more so, a problematic, I would think.
No, it is. I mean, it's very frustrating. I mean, 3 months time is a long time to go by, and actually, a lot of policies give them a little bit of an out or a little argument, because at least in Florida, the policies often will say that they have the 90 days. Actually, it's statutory, but also in a lot of the policies that they have the 90 days. But if there's a reason why they should need additional time to do a full and proper investigation of the claim, they could take a longer amount of time. And I mean, that's kind of a vague, nebulous, type of standard. But I mean, let's put it this way: most of the time, there's a denial of the claim within the 90 days. Sometimes it's on the 90th day, and then they'll wait right up until that time to do it. But most of the times, that's what happens. Usually, if they fail to give a response within 9 days, it might be like a partial, like a partial denial where they don't fully tell you what the all the coverages are. Sometimes, and this is where, from a layman's standpoint, it's sometimes difficult to know what's being done, because what the insurance company will do if they do give at least partial coverage of a claim is they'll give you a estimate that is written on software that's used by adjusters and have all these different line items. It could be hundreds of these little different line items, and the average layperson might not understand what all that stuff means. Not really realize what the bottom line is unless they hire their own adjuster or a contractor to review it and figure out whether this is a proper coverage or not. So a lot of people will hire someone to review what's what they receive from the insurance company, such as a public adjuster, or if they hire attorneys such as myself, we could have that reviewed as well by a loss consultant, which is usually just a public adjuster acting in the capacity as a loss consultant, and review to see if the insurance company's disposition of the claim is proper. And,
Well, Joe, wouldn't it be just a good idea if, as a property owner, if you just don't feel right about something, go talk to an attorney like yourself? And definitely, I would think you would say, don't sign anything.
yes.
Go to Joe. Go to an attorney like Joe.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Not only that, it can feel right, and you might still be getting less than what you deserve. It's funny. I ran into somebody a couple of weeks ago, and we were, this conversation came up of what I did, and he was asking me a question because he had an insurance claim, and he thought, hey, well, if I get $5,000 out of this, then I'll be doing good. But he actually hired someone to help him. He wound up getting more. He wound up getting over $10,000, and so he got more than he thought he was going to get. But it's because to the untrained layman, you don't really know what you might need to repair your home. So that's one thing to be very careful of, is if your insurance company wants to do a settlement with you, after a claim and wants you to sign off on something, be very careful about it. I mean, realistically, they shouldn't be asking to sign anything. Normally speaking, when they issue a payment, it's no strings attached. They're issuing a payment. It's an undisputed amount, and then you can come back later and say, okay, that's not enough. I think there should be more. That's the way it should work. If they're asking you to sign off something like a release and say, okay, that's it, that's what you should be very, very suspicious about.
I think the one thing that folks should really understand out here, and I want to make sure I preface this point very thoroughly and carefully, is the reason why you may need an attorney to help you with your claim is I want to break it down into the things that you mentioned as a reinforcement type of thing. Is one, in the event that your insurance company, one, denies a claim, underpays your claim, and delays in proving a response to your claim. And I want to make sure that as I reinforce certain things, the key words in this, folks, are why you may need an attorney to help you with your claim. And then again, denies, underpays, and delays. Those are the things that, not saying it's just one of those type of things where, when you talk about highlighting key words about may being in general, that's a guideline, I think, for which a lot of folks should pretty much gauge things, right, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is, there's no reason not to. Our consultations are always free. Our cases are handled on a contingency basis. We only receive a payment if you receive a recovery. So there's really no reason not to reach out to an attorney to give your claim a once over, to see, if you're one of the fortunate, lucky people that actually got your insurance company to approve your claim and make a payment, then yeah, I mean, you still could benefit from the advice of attorney. Can't hurt,
right?
To get someone to take a look at it, to see. But most often you have an inkling of whether, like Ron said, you have an inkling if something's amiss, and you have to just do your due diligence too. If your insurance company is saying that we only want to pay you for a repair and not for a replacement, or we only want to pay for fixing this one little area and painting this one little portion of the wall, and you have continuous paint throughout your house, or they want to patch up area of ceiling, you have popcorn ceiling, or throughout your house, and it's going to look terrible. If they only fix that little area or paint that little area, there's. I can't speak to other states, but in Florida, there's what's called a matching statute that allows you to recover so that your house doesn't look horrible after a loss. Now, believe me, the insurance companies fight this. So it's not always a easy battle, but we fight that battle so that your house looks like it did before your loss occurred. Your house, you shouldn't be able to walk in your house and say, oh yeah, that's where they did the repair. That shouldn't happen.
So Joe, it sounds like there's really no downside to go to talk to an attorney, because in order to be safe, just to even, I guess the worst that could happen is you would tell the prospective client, "Hey, this sounds good," and at least give them reinforcement. Now, if somebody wants to consult with a property damage attorney, what should they have with them? What do you need to see to kind of get going? What helps you if they're coming in for their free consultation?
Well, obviously the policy, because we need to know what the coverages are. So that's obviously very important. A lot of times clients will say, "Oh, I don't have a copy of it. I don't know where to get it from." Your insurance agent should be able to get it if you can't get it yourself online. Either one of those two places, you should be able to get a copy of your policy if you don't already have it. Secondly, would be any correspondence that you received from your insurance company. If you dealt with them on your own. If you dealt with a public adjuster, then your public adjuster would probably have all that information because they're the ones that that had the face-to-face contact with the insurance company. If you did that on your own, though, it would be the correspondence that you have with them, especially that denial letter, if there was a denial, or payment decision letter with any sort of estimates that they provided. I mean, those are the basic thing. And then obviously if you got your own estimates for repairs, that would be helpful. And anything that you had done, any repairs that you had done or replaced property, things like that. So, I mean, a good tip would be, if you have to deal with your insurance company on your own, just document everything. If you have phone calls, write down what you spoke about. Write down the name of the person you spoke to, the time and day that you spoke to them, what they said. Just document everything the best that you can, so that if you unfortunately have to bring a lawsuit against your insurance company to make them do what's right, you have all that information that your attorney might need.
That's an interesting point. Just to kind of go over things as you talk about, and I like the question that you have about why you hire an attorney, because like you said, Joe, the consultations are free. The case are handled on a contingency basis, and you get partial payment. But I think what's interesting, people should know, if part or possibly all of your fees can be recovered from the insurance company. So I think that's the one thing that can't lose sight of. And whether you're talking about an insurance, whether you're talking about to a phone company, cell phone, or whatever, I always find it's important to document who you're talking to, the time, the date, and even try to get the ID number of the individual, because as long as you have that trail and they're documenting it right, I don't care whether it's an attorney, cell phone, or whatnot. That's a good common practice that everybody should be involved in, regardless of what situation is, especially whether it's in this case or something else as well. So they always say document, so you don't have to go out there and worry about having to wonder what if, that kind of thing.
So one just little follow-up to what you just said. Well, first of all, I don't know what the laws are in different states regarding recovering attorney's fees from your insurance company. In Florida, there was a change in the law that it didn't completely do away with it, but it changed it. It used to be, up until last year, if you made any recovery from your insurance company had to pay all of your fees. It's now changed so that you have to, there's like a scale. You have to do a pre-suit demand to your insurance company before you can file a lawsuit. And then depending on how much you recover against your insurance company in a lawsuit dictates how much of an attorney's fee that your attorney can recover on your behalf from the insurance company. So it could be full, it could be a part, or it could be nothing. But it really depends on the situation. So unfortunately, the legislature has been whittling away against the rights of insurance policyholders, based upon the insurance companies saying that, hey, we're not making enough money, that this is the reason why the insurance rates are so high. So, unfortunately, they're taking it out on the insurance policyholders. Mind you, they're not lowering their rates, but they're lessening your rights, and they're whittling away against really what you can recover against the insurance companies. So
Right. So what I want to ask you is a follow-up here then, and I want to
sure.
make sure there's enough clarity for our audience out there, okay? When you talk about part or possibly all of your fees can be recovered from the insurance company, and this is a direct question, Joe. Okay, I want you to provide clarity on what you meant when you put that out there so that people understand that particular concept in its entirety.
Okay, so before the statute changed, there's a statute in Florida. Obviously, if you don't live in Florida, this
Right.
doesn't apply to you, and you'd have to check with an attorney in your state to know what the law is in your state regard to this. But in Florida, there's a statute called Florida Statute 627428, and what that says is if you file suit against your insurance company, you can recover your attorney's fees from them from any recovery. Now, subsequent that's been a law for years and years and years. Now, subsequent to that, back like last July 1st, another law went into effect that governs suits against a property insurance company, like homeowners insurance companies, and it changed things. It didn't do away with the right to attorney's fees, but it changed the calculation of how you recover. And first of all, you have to do it what's called a pre-suit notice of initiation or notice of intent to initiate litigation. So you have to let the insurance company know beforehand, hey, we disagree with the decision you made on the claim. We are intending to file suit. Here's your chance to make things good. Here's our demand. And you do a demand of a certain amount. And there is a calculation in Florida statute, newly created Florida statute 627-70152, which is entitled Suits Arising Under Property Insurance Policy. And under Section 8, it gives the calculation of the fee amount, and it has to do with the difference between the amount obtained by the claimant and the pre-suit settlement offer. And I'll just read you the statute. That's probably the easiest way.
Right.
As if the difference between the amounts obtained by the claimant and the pre-suit settlement offer, excluding reasonable attorney's fees and costs, is less than 20% of the disputed amount, each party pays its own attorney's fees and costs, and a claimant may not be awarded the fees under 627428. Then it says, if the difference between the amount obtained by the claimant and the pre-suit settlement offer, excluding reasonable attorney's fees, is at least 20%, but less than 50% of the disputed amount, the insured pays the claimant attorney's fees equal to the percentage of the disputed amount obtained times the total attorney's fees and costs. And then it says if the difference between is at least 50% of the disputed amount, the insurer pays the full amount of attorney's fees and costs. Now, I didn't read that entire statute,
Right.
but that just gives you the gist. Depending on what the recovery is and the percentage of, as a percentage of what the pre-suit demand is, dictates how much attorney's fees can be recovered from the insurance company after a successful recovery in a lawsuit. Now, if your case settles at some point during the litigation, then it is what it is. Now, this provision would kick in if you went to trial and you had a jury verdict in your favor and it was of a certain amount. Then that's how you would calculate it. But I can tell you the vast majority of cases will settle at some point before trial, either at informally between the parties or at a mediation, and then the parties, they agree upon what those figures are. So this statute really applies when you go all the way to trial and there's a verdict, and then that would govern how much of a fee that's received. So the long and short of it is that the insurance the legislature has whittled away against the rights of the insured, so it's not as good as it used to be. You still have the right to attorney's fees. it's just changed, and it's not a slam dunk guarantee anymore the way it used to be.
There's one point I want to bring out there, then I want to move over to the referrals part as we get ready to wrap her up here. I know when you talked about delays, and I don't want to get too far off subject, but I want to make sure the actual concept is simplified. Many years ago, when I had a personal injury case, sometimes when you deal with delays, big companies will try to wear you out and cave you in to take a claim that are less. And they tried to do that with me. My personal injury claim lasted the better part of 10 years, and that didn't happen with me. I was able to maximize it, and it was just a matter of playing the old rope-a-dope / Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, and then all of a sudden I ended up getting what I thought was a fair settlement at the time. But we do know sometimes bigger companies will use a delay tactic to try to wear you out, and that can apply to personal injury. And if I'm understanding correctly, that delay tactic can be applied here as well, which is probably why they hold out. But if you have a good enough attorney, then it doesn't make any difference. I only wanted to include that in here so that way when you talk about the general idea of the topic of delay, that it can be related to different facets of things. Yeah. And that's the only reason I brought it up here, because I dealt with it through a personal injury myself. So I understand it a little bit more. So I'm glad we had a chance to get that in there as well. Do you want to add anything as far as good referrals, or do you want to?
Actually, I want to expand upon your point a little bit, because what I was talking about was more of a delay that occurs prior to litigation. But you're absolutely right. The delay tactics will still happen even afterwards, and I think it's because the insurance company knows that there are certain people out there that they can take advantage of.
Right.
That if they draw things out, believe me, there's a lot of people who, after litigation goes on for a while, they're like, hey, I just want to get this over. I'll just take whatever they want to give me because I'm done with it. I don't want to do this anymore. And insurance companies know this. That happens. It's unfortunate. People have to realize if they want to file a claim against their insurance company or a lawsuit because of a underpaid or denied or delayed claim, that it doesn't, the litigation doesn't get resolved overnight. I mean, we try, we work as hard as we possibly can to get it resolved as quickly as we can, but unfortunately, there's it takes two to tango. You have to have a willing partner on the other side to come to a quick resolution via settlement. Otherwise, you just have to take them to the mat and litigate and. But most people don't want to take it all the way to trial. They want to get it resolved at some point. And,
well, I thought it was worth mentioning because of the congruent nature of how it is. And again, we're talking about this being a broadcast that everybody should be able to benefit. I'll mention one other thing, and then I do want to move over to the referral part as well, because I know a lot of people are probably interested in that. What ultimately happened in my case is, since I'm a media guy, I got hurt on the job. I told the place that we were suing, hey, you know what? I already got the permission from my editor to blow you right up if you don't get this thing done. And when my attorney took it back to them, they didn't want the bad publicity, and they realized that bad publicity could be a whole lot. And it kind of forced their hand and said, all right, we need to get this thing over with. It's dragged on too long. And as a result, they didn't want to go any time to move on and graduate from me. I would be too much of a liability and a problem. But again, I'm not going to get into the logistics of it. But I know how the delay thing can work, and you just have to stick it out and gut it out if you are able to do it. And I think, Joe, you've been able to educate a lot of people along those lines. And we know insurance companies will take advantage, but stand there, slug it out, get what you're entitled to, because otherwise you're going to have to pay for it out of your pocket. And that's really what the whole idea of this broadcast is, to make sure we educate and inform in a lot of ways so that you guys are protected. So I just want to make sure we cover those particular bases. Go ahead, Ron.
Joe, I just had a question. Thanks, Scott. I just had a question for Joe, because let's say a case gets into litigation, and obviously, as the attorney, you're working hard on it to try and resolve it. From the claimant or the client's or the litigant's perspective at that point, what can they generally expect to have to be involved in from their point of view? What will they have to do to assist you to hopefully have a favorable resolution of their case?
There's not too much that they will be involved in. There's things they could do, obviously, to assist, and some of those things are before they even contact us, because they really should be doing stuff when they're handling their claim, especially if they're doing it on their own. If they hire a public adjuster, then the public adjuster is going to do a lot of that stuff for them, and they're going to do it, the way it's supposed to be done, hopefully. But if the insured is handling their own claim themselves, then they can document things, so they can really help themselves out before it even comes to us. Now, during a claim, the only things that they're really going to get involved in is having their deposition taken, which, it sounds like it could be scary. A lot of people are worried about their deposition until it actually happens, and they're like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad." It's an informal out of court proceeding where you go in. Well, it used to be you go into a court reporter's office. Nowadays, you sit in the comfort of your own home and you get recorded, just like we are in this StreamYard video, and you see the court reporter. Well, you don't really see them there in the background, but you see the attorney who's taking your deposition, and your attorney's there on another screen,
Right.
and questions are asked, and the court reporter's there to take them down. It's not that big of a deal. It's nothing to worry or stress about. Another thing that an insured or litigant would be involved in is mediation, and that's even less stressful because you don't really say anything during mediation. You're kind of just there, and your attorney does all the talking. And mediation is basically where you have a neutral third party, usually a former judge or a current attorney, who tries to help both parties resolve the claim. And the people that would be involved in that would be, the attorneys for both sides, a representative from the insurance company, and the insured plaintiffs. And nowadays those are also being done by Zoom, so it would happen very similar to how what we're talking right now. Those are the two major things that a person would be involved in. Now, there's obviously things that they can do, during a lawsuit, and the biggest thing is just to keep their attorney informed about anything that might happen. You have a change in the status of your property, you start having a roof leak. Let us know. Don't keep that information to yourself. Or you're going to do a major repair on something. Make sure we know about it, and make sure that you document everything. I can tell you, we unfortunately had clients who didn't do these things, and they made a major repair to the roof or put a new roof on, didn't tell us, and we had to let the insurance company know beforehand that they were going to do this, so they had the right to inspect. So a big thing is just to make sure you communicate with your attorney so that they know what's going on. So I mean.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I guess my final question really is, let's talk about a good referral. I know that you presented this before, but let's just keep it in a general context in addition to what you presented as well. What would be a good referral for you when it comes to such a thing like this?
Well, obviously, anybody who has experienced damage to their home that they own and have a property damage casualty insurance policy for. Obviously, people who are in an apartment complex and they're renting, that doesn't fall in that category. But if you own your own home or business and you had a casualty loss from fire, tornado, a hurricane, just general windstorm, doesn't even have to be a hurricane or tornado, hail, you had a pipe burst or an underground slab leak, anything that you could possibly imagine, so that's going to damage your home, then under most situations, we're going to be able to help you. One exception would be flood, because flood insurance is a different animal.
Right.
But so if you had rising waters come in your house, like from storms or something, that's a different thing. But almost everything else is something that we can help with. It would be a good referral.
All right. So you're talking about home or commercial property that you say has suffered damage as a result of cover loss, storm, fire, broken water pipe, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And then you also talk about persons or companies who have first responders for losses such as plumbers, roofers, water mitigation, restoration companies, mold remediation companies, and then public adjusters. Right?
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
just,
yeah. I mean, public adjusters would be probably the next area, because they're, public adjusters are the ones that are in contact with the people who have issues with their claims. And unfortunately, public adjuster can only do so much.
right.
They could represent the insured's interest to the insurance company, help them out with filing their claim. But if the insurance company stands by their denial or their underpayment, there's only so much the public adjuster can do. They can't file a lawsuit. They have to retain an attorney in order to, well, they don't retain the attorney. The insured has to retain an attorney. But a lot of times what happens is the public adjuster will say, hey, I know of a good attorney who could help you. So a lot of our referrals come from public adjusters who refer their clients to us to take the next step if the insurance company doesn't do right by them. And then you also mentioned, first responders. Other referrals that we've received are from companies such as water mitigation companies, roofing companies, where they had a property owner call up and say that they had damage, and they're going to do the repairs of that damage. And they see that the damage was caused by something that should be covered under the insurance policy, but that the insured has a problem with their insurance company. Sometimes that roofing company or water mitigation company can say, hey, I know of a law firm that can help you out. So those are good referrals as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, so folks, just so you know, I don't know if you're just tuning in or not. If you have, well, feel free to watch the show again. This is all about property damage with insurance claims. My name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined by Joe Littman of the Nor Law Group, who can be reached at 954-749-3151, along with Ron Renzy, Sunshine Appeals, PA. And again, both of these guys are colleagues of mine at the Coral Springs Coconut Creek Regional Chamber of Commerce. Again, I've known them for a long time. They certainly go out there, and we've always enjoyed working together. And this is a great opportunity, whether you're dealing with just a storm season, or any particular type of situation. I know that a lot of what the information that we've brought to you tonight is something that you have to really be careful and cautious of, because there's so many underlying factors that are out there that you should pay close attention. I've always had a philosophy doing this, and I've been in broadcasting for 42 years. Our responsibility here is to educate and entertain. Now, again, how much are we entertaining tonight? I would think a fair amount, but more so on the education side, because there is a lot to take in. And I want to make sure that during the course of this time here, that if you feel the need to listen or watch this broadcast a couple of times, let me tell you, the hour that we've spent here talking about the subject, to me, is such invaluable information that before you call anybody up, at least you're further ahead in the process as you would by contacting somebody. What you really have tonight in terms of the show is, I don't want to say a free consultation, but a lot of free information that will make you smarter during that free consultation, so you'll be able to ask the right questions in the event you run into some situations that could indeed very, very, very expensive. And I'm very pleased to have Joe and Ron as colleagues, because what, they bring their strengths of expertise in a lot of areas that a lot of people benefit by. And what we're giving you tonight, folks, is so, so important. Just to let you know, No Limits can be found on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel to get the video portion of it, and at Tribune South. And also go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. And also you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. So lots of different ways. And of course, if you're on Twitter, at Tribune South, and I can be found on LinkedIn as well. So, Joe and Ron, I got to tell you, it's been a very great opportunity to spend time with two people I have the utmost of respect for. But again, our main objective is, folks, I'm a firm believer if you take one thing out of this show, just one thing out of it, and you're a lot smarter, then we want to definitely feel that we've done the right service and justice by you. We very mean it from our heart and our head to do that. And that's why these gentlemen tonight have been willing to spend part of their evening to make sure that we're a lot smarter as a result of. So I can't thank you guys very much for being on this show tonight. And we certainly look forward, Ron and Joe, to have you on other shows, whether it's a serious show or something a little bit more where we can joke around a little bit. But I don't think when it comes to these kind of things that when you're dealing with dollars and cents, there's nothing to joke around. It gets expensive. The main thing is I always like to joke around that there's 11 commandments and thou shalt not overspend. Okay. Not the 10 that Moses had out there that everybody figures are probably outdated. All right. Little sense of humor tonight, but what I realize is I'd rather you have a little sense of humor so that we understand the sense of perspective that Joe and Ron have been so generous enough to provide tonight. So Joe, any closing thoughts before we call it a night?
Well, I was actually, you hit the nail on the head. I was thinking the same thing as you. Is if we talked for an hour about all this stuff, but if people just took, one or two things out of this, just like, for instance, the part about reading your policy and knowing what it says and reviewing it ahead of time, I mean, that could save you not only money but a lot of headaches. They say ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure or something like that, and I really believe that there's a lot of people that they can do to save themselves headaches down the road just by being informed of what their policy says and doing it before they need it, so that if they need to make any adjustments, they can do so before it happens. Before they make any mistakes that could be costly.
Well, it's called proactive instead of reactive is what it is. And the one thing I should point out too, before I turn it over to you, Ron, is this. Okay. I know a lot of times people will say attention spans when it comes to watching these shows or what they are. You know what? Sometimes if you have a shorter attention span for one thing, it's one thing. But I don't care what your attention span is when you have something this informative and educational that you need. I would think that attention span should be expanded a little bit, especially when you know it can get expensive. Yeah. The average attention span, 30 minutes. Yes, that may happen 80, 90% of the time. But when you run across something like this, your attention span will be whatever it takes from the minute we start this show until the minute we end it. Because the main objective is you can always hit the rewind button and go back and forth, and make sure you have that pen and paper to make sure that you're able to do the things that can save you a lot of time, money, and more importantly, aggravation. So attention spans, you know what? No disrespect to them. Throw them out the window when it comes to a show like this, because I've worked very hard to bring these two experts on here to try to put things in perspective. Now I'll turn over to you, Ron Renzy.
Well, thank you, Scott. Joe, I just want to say I think you did an excellent job. I from listening to you, I had two main takeaways. Number one, know your policy, especially before you purchase it. And number two, any questions, call an attorney. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. It doesn't cost you anything for a first property attorney for a consultation. So call your attorney. So Joe, very succinct and clear. Every time I'm on a show with you, I like, Joe, he's good. I'm Scott.
I will say this. Every time I'm on a show with you guys, okay, two guys that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, it's always a privilege to be able to be in your company, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that we're able to do it tonight. And obviously, I look forward to future episodes, depending on what we talk about. But meanwhile, once again, I'll shout out to Candy Ebling, who actually operates the South Florida Tribune. I'll go over her contact information one more time before we call it a night. Is there, first of all, www.southfloridatribune.com is the website. Okay. southfloridatribune@gmail.com is the email. Twitter @Tribune South. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. All it takes is a little bit of effort and a subscribe button. And of course, again, the audio portion of the broadcast can be found on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. So folks, I'll tell you what, I've really enjoyed this show with Ron and Joe. And, I thank you guys for being on this show, and we look forward to doing it again down the road. So Thank you very much, folks. Go out there, have a great weekend. And if you have any questions, all of our information's out there. If you're watching the show, once again, you can see the information on the bottom portion of Ron's information over on the actual banner and the ticker side. And of course, Joe's right up there. It's all out there for you to see. And of course, hear it as well when you listen to it again. So meanwhile, on behalf of Joe Littman and Ron Renzy, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of No Limits. And once again, I don't care what it is there. No limits is appropriate for this because you don't want to find yourself limited in terms of what your expenses are. Want to make sure that you're totally covered and properly prepared. Good evening, everybody, and thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.
Good night.